Oh, hey Jerry, what's going on? Or shall I say, Guardian? Yeah, I know, right? That raid last night? Awesome. Destiny 2. Activision should be proud. Forsaken's gotta be the greatest expansion yet. I can't wait to play more. Wait, Activision called you? Why would they call you? They want more money? Activision used to be one of the companies I looked up to. The list of games they have helped create is beyond counting at this point, including beloved titles like Tony Hawk, Call of Duty 4, Spyro the Dragon, Guitar Hero, Spider-Man 2, Return to Castle Wolfenstein, and all the way back into time with games like Pitfall. Founded in 1997 and making games ever since, Activision is as classic to games as the Mona Lisa is to painting. They've certainly been no stranger to scandals though, including sexual harassment lawsuits and running police states or withholding payouts or bonuses to developers like Infinity Ward. They've also been in the spotlight for every single DLC transgression possible, but still, Activision provides some of the industry's best titles regardless. It's unsettling that they've been chasing certain trends these days, especially after the merger with Blizzard in 2008, namely monetization. This once publishing giant is having its worst year ever. Activision stock has plummeted upwards of 20% since January, despite their ongoing attempts at making every game they make a cash cow. The volatility in their stock price is unexpected, especially when we compare this stock to the growth rate of the S&P 500, which we can use for reference, especially because Activision is one of two gaming stocks included in this index, EA being the other one. In the same time period, the S&P 500 has not experienced the same downturn. In fact, its value has grown overall by several points. This is very bad for Activision. Today is the era of competition, and if you can't beat it, you monetize it to death. And in this video, we're going to briefly discuss how Activision is turning up their monetization dials yet again to try to stay afloat in this increasingly unpredictable and deadly competitive industry. And of course, go over what that means for us as gamers. So is Activision, greedy in its monetization prospects for the future, turning into the next EA? As we all know in this industry, often game maker and publisher don't exactly see eye to eye. They operate on different wavelengths, as the game maker wants to build a fun game for gamers that is successful, yet the publisher cares a lot more about the performance of the game, and often that supersedes even the happiness of the player base. Activision has had many tumultuous relationships with many of its development studios, specifically Bungie, fighting it out over what is right for the gamer versus shoveling out demands to make the game as money-rich as possible. Not everyone can be pleased, and something usually has to give. Currently, they have 763 million shares outstanding. Some quick math will show you that Activision's value has dropped $11.27 billion since November 1st. In fact, this has been the largest stock plunge in the history of the company, outdoing its huge drop during the 2008 housing market crash. And that's not something you see every day. It's certainly a strange time to be an Activision stockholder, as otherwise the company has been doing very well and skyrocketing in value through the years. A publicly traded company is valued by multiplying the amount of outstanding shares of stock by its stock price, of course. As investors sell stock via the market of supply and demand, the stock price drops because people aren't interested in buying it as much, which lowers the total value of the company. As more people continue to bail on Activision, they will continue to panic and make rash decisions on how to recoup that money, which can only be acquired by regaining the confidence of investors across the world, and that means bringing in more moolah. In their latest earnings call, which is when the bigwigs of the company get together to discuss the company performance, Activision reported that Destiny 2's newest expansion, which is Forsaken, did not meet commercial expectations, which means it sold less than predicted and had less fan engagement through its recurring player base. It was an ironic moment in time because Forsaken is arguably the best expansion Destiny 2 has seen to date, and probably the preferred way to play the game. Not much is known why this is the case, but one can only speculate that players were simply burnt up by Destiny 2's rocky history, be it questionable DLC integrations, layers of unwanted micro-gambling, numerous episodes of locked-off content, or paywalls, such as the Iron Banner emote, mismanaged PR statements that angered gamers, and the poor initial reception from the game. For a while, the industry was wrapped up totally in the never-ending Destiny controversies. It almost seemed like a gimmick at one point to spur up discussion around their game, as one could think it impossible to screw up this many times with a single game, especially with one of the biggest publishers at the helm. Bungie has worked their butts off to improve the state at which the game launched, and Forsaken is borderline great, but that doesn't mean people will magically pick it up after being exposed to Activision's various ploys at consumer exploitation. Perhaps the long-tenured conflicts in Destiny's past still resonate with many people, those burnt by the bad will of the company. It most likely created a buying environment where many gamers held off buying the expansion altogether, practicing the wait-and-see method instead. Others most likely abandoned ship long before Forsaken was even announced because the game hadn't been up to snuff. Many buyers soured by dropping $60 or $100 on the title with little joy backing it up. In response to the downturn in sales for the Forsaken expansion, Activision made public that they want to recoup this player engagement and lost sales by focusing on extending their monetization inside the game. While this may seem perfectly sensible, if your portfolio has the words Activision Blizzard inside of it, it's also something that proves Activision is living inside La La Land. Because the core issue of Destiny players not participating in Forsaken isn't because there aren't enough items in the in-game store or for money DLC packs to pick up. It's not because Activision isn't giving them more avenues to hand over more money. It's because they don't believe in Destiny anymore. It's a shame because a lot of those would-be Forsaken players missed out on a great game, but I don't blame them for giving up on the franchise before they could even consider it. In what world is focusing on siphoning more money from your player base a good idea when the performance of the base game isn't there in the first place? It reminds me of someone who pushes the panic button too soon, without properly thinking of a solution that fixes the actual initial problem. It's the same problem that Diablo Immortal has, which will be a mobile game. Nobody asked for Diablo on a handheld device, yet for some reason, Activision Blizzard thought it'd be a great idea for the community. It's just another example of them being out of touch with the player base that engages with their games, instead prioritizing business. To be fair, there's nothing wrong with mobile games and long-term monetization strategies for cheap platforms like this, but there is something off-putting about taking a franchise that was born on the PC, having nothing to do with mobile, and cramming it inside that device anyway, one that will likely have various methods for extracting marginal microtransaction revenue along the way. Last but not least, we have Activision Blizzard pulling the old once over on the Black Ops 4 community, adding in microtransactions just a few weeks after the game came out. An in-game store is not the enemy if it's put in the right game, and actually enhances the value one can get from a game that has a cheaper price point. But stuffing one into a Call of Duty game doesn't give it the same value, nor does it make the game actually better. Its sheer existence is a simple reminder that they want you to spend more than $60 on this game, not to mention the additional $50 many COD players will be forking over for its season pass. So 3 different scenarios, 3 different games, yet 3 different focuses on monetization first, while gamers come second. The great irony of it all is that if Activision would simply step aside from their corporate scheming and throne and let these developers make the games they want to, there would be no limit to the potential of an Activision Blizzard title. Instead, they choose to focus on living in a dream world where monetization is more important than simply making great games. Why this company has the ability to do this is because they have so much leverage in the marketplace, especially with their mobile games, Candy Crush, etc. As the years go by in this industry, we could all see the industry changing, especially in terms of how video games are priced, monetized, and extended beyond their initial releases. Many companies out there focus on the game first, which is I think what we want as gamers. But then there's other companies out there, the big ones, that focus on the money first, hopefully trying to lure us into their beautiful, big, robust live service games that will extend far beyond when we purchase them. And I think right now Activision Blizzard has got to be one of those companies that is at the top of this movement. Has it already created some backlash within the gaming community? You betcha. Will it continue to do so in the future? Probably, so long as Activision Blizzard continues to put pocketbooks before gamers. I think it would have gone a long way for Activision Blizzard to, instead of say, you know what, we failed with Destiny 2, now we're going to stuff more monetization windows inside of it, to say, you know what, we were proud of this game. We loved the way Bungie took control of this franchise, and we are excited about the future of the game. Just come and join us. I would have loved the Diablo announcement to be about Diablo 4 and not them just bending over at the thought of getting all this cash from a mobile game. And I would have loved just once, if they didn't put microtransactions in their Call of Duty game. But Activision Blizzard is living in La La Land at the moment, and we'll have to see what happens to them in the future. But right now, it's not looking so good on the financial side, as well as the side of gamers. It sounds a lot like the EA situation in the last 18 months or so, where the industry has had to work their butts off calling them out for taking monetization too far. Activision seems to see monetization as the ticket to fixing their issues and getting the company back on the right track. They're running the entire gambit: exploitative microtransaction systems, leaning on mobile trends, and designing games around in-game stores in order to extract maximum cash from you. Does that make their games bad? No, of course not. It just makes them look to the industry as greedy as EA, where everything is about the money. Hello? Activision Blizzard? No, you can't have more money.